Hello everyone, and welcome back to another WARNO Deck Deep Dive. Today we gonna go back into a division that I always have loved and that I always will have in my top 3 WARNO divisions, and it might just have jumped back towards the first place in that list, and that is Kampfgruppen der Arbeiterklasse Bezirk Erfurt, aka KDA, and that deck currently is played quite a lot in competitive play. The deck that we have here in front of us today is the variant that I have got myself from Fortitude Fans, slightly modified. He used it in the Warner League with success, and this one is a slightly modified version of that. The division for sure is competitive. It has a little decent amount of different variants. Some people go more into the Smirch build, some people go more into the air spam, some people go more into the infantry spam, some go more towards the T62s. There are a couple of ways to build it. This one here for sure can be successful, and let's have a look into it here, starting in the logistics tab, where you get a lot of ammo, so your artillery can fire for a really long time. You still get 3 CVs here, we get more CVs in the tank tab, and another 3 here in the infantry tab, so 8 CVs. That is more than enough to get you through a game if you are somewhat reserveful of them, but yeah, unless you're throwing them away randomly, your CV game here is saved. Infantry tab, a lot of options, a lot of good options here as well. We have the Zagorodiat police that helps out your KDA Schützen to be pretty decent, and also is a really good infantry killer. The sniper rifle helps out a lot, really strong at the moment, really strong. So using a sniper unit, if you can get one in an infantry tab at the moment, is kind of a no-brainer. And these guys here do decent damage on their own, plus they make the KDA Schützen better, and also help all the other units coping with stress, improving their stress recovery here with the military police trait. So, really nice unit. Reservistenführer with the Strela being a decent leader as well. Then the Modschützen in BTRs. BTRs can be helpful. You get another unit here with the Sicherungs with them. That also can be nice as a flank protection unit here. And both of these units really helpful. Giving you a vehicle that can give fire support, and also decent firepower on the Modschützen with the double LMG. So solid units here. KDA Schützen, still a good meat shield. They have been nerfed a couple of times in the past, but they're still pretty decent at what they do. So having a card of KDA Schützen here, you can't do anything really wrong with. Pioneers and Pioneer Flam here as your CQC unit. They both work decently as well. Pioneer Flam here on the veterancy so that they can close the gap without being stunned down and use their flamethrower. And yeah, really solid unit there. And then we have our long-range fire support unit here with the 50 cal that can hold positions nicely. SPG-9s and Conquerors also can be used as anti-tank. And yeah, Conqueror's really solid anti-tank unit here. You don't get any special transport or anything, but Conqueror still is a really solid ATGM. Artillery tab, helpful as well. We have some smoke in this deck with the 82mm. That's usually what you want to use these for. The HE damage of them is not that amazing. If you're interested in that, out of your mortars, go with the 120mm, but obviously the 82 one is a lot cheaper, so you get your smoke cheaper. The D20 is a decent howitzer. If you are really in the need for howitzers to clean out enemy ATGM positions or kill off the AA, the D20 can do that on a cheap basis. Obviously you have the Malka potentially in this deck as well, but slots here are a bit of an issue, and for what the Malka does, you kind of have the Smirch already. Like, if you have high priority targets, get the Smirch. It is really expensive, so you have to be sure that the enemy has units worthwhile for it. But if the enemy has units worthwhile, getting hit by this is a delete machine, and the BM30 Smirch can really get you out of tricky situations, can clean up enemy tanks, BAMs, if you use it with holding fire and putting the firing onto a nice spot in front of the enemy push, and then just let it rip once the enemy is pushing into that circle. Or you can kill off enemy AA if you're playing the air spam variant of this, and you're just wanting to get the AA gone so that your bombers can get through again. Smirch can do that nicely as well, and stuff like that. So Smirch, really powerful. Don't underestimate the power of the Smirch. try to incorporate it into your play when the game is stalling out a bit. It can be really helpful there. And then tank tab. The T62, it is a really solid tank at the moment. It's crazy how strong this tank can be at the moment, especially the variants of the ATGM. The 2800 range on that ATGM is fantastic. It's a really, really good tool, and a good bunched up T62 plop in the early game to early mid game can just run over a lot of things. A lot of decks don't really have an answer to this. The 14 frontal armor are pretty powerful. You still need to be careful and micro them. You don't have endless numbers of these, but in the right situation, on the right ranges, sometimes this can just end the game really early on. Like we have seen that with Fortitude Fans. We have seen that it attempted a couple of other times and fail, including by Fortitude Fans as well. But if you pull that off in the right moment, the T62 plop is really hard to kill. Because, yes, they have disadvantages with their relatively low speed and low rate of fire, but their penetration plus frontal armor are a combo that is hard to beat for light tanks and IFVs. So you need something that can hit them pretty hard to kill them off, and if you don't have enough of that lying around, the T62 is just gonna run you over. And they can stand down individual heavy tanks pretty quickly as well between their gun and the ATGM, and then you have a problem. So yeah, the T62 plop here, pretty powerful. The MV obviously a bit overpriced currently, in comparison to the M variant, has less frontal armor and only one extra hit point with the era trait, but you don't have another option, so you take it anyways because it's still pretty decent with its ATGMs. And then Recon tab, pretty standard. The Malyutka we just take here for getting a bit of more cheap ATGMs between your tanks. That's why we take the cheap version. With the terrible Malyutka, it's just mostly for the stress there. The stress value on it is nice. The damage, not that great. Accuracy, not that great. And so on. But the Conqueror's one is a lot more expensive in comparison, like percentage-wise. So yeah, this one you can just spam a lot. And you want to have it for the push. If you want to play the deck a bit more defensive, the Conquerors or maybe even the 1mm is the better option. Recon tab, just some cheap infantry to spam around and have some ice. Some with AT weapon here, normal off clearers, and then the KDA off clearers as your really cheap one that just can be going anywhere. 6 hit points is surprisingly tanky for a 20-point unit, so that really is helpful. Can mean that you can come around the second time after they get spotted once and hit a bit and get to another position and have them laying eyes on the enemy again. And 13 recon units here is a decent number, so you don't have to take the other really expensive 3-point slots. One of the weaknesses of KDA for sure, the expensiveness of the recon slots, but it gets you covered here through, and then you can just use the recon to really cheaply give you some eyes on the enemy. AA, pretty solid as well. The 57mm is an infantry delete machine now as well, not just a helicopter deleter. Against aircraft, it is pretty bad nowadays. That is fine, but it is really solid against infantry and against helicopters, so that is pretty solid still. Also, important for the openers, because it is fast, so it can join your early troops on the front line. Having an OSA in your opener is pretty key, and also nice to have around following your tank push later on, if you want to play like that. And then the Book is just a delete machine. It is a bit slower though, and yeah, you need 2 of them to really effectively shut down everything, but against some decks where they have a lot of 8 hit point planes, the 1-hit potential of this is amazing, and in general, the Book is just a great AA piece. Micro your radar, and this one will get you throw. It's way better than the OSA on just base stats, but the OSA with the speed advantage is for the key usage in the beginning an important part of this deck. Still hope OSAs and Tors will get buffed eventually. And then we come to the helicopter tab, where you have a decent helicopter with the Mi-24P, and then an okayish one with the Mi-AT here. That can be annoying against enemy vehicles as well. The rockets are okay, but yeah, the damage output is not amazing, but it has the power to deal with both light vehicles and soft targets, so that is helpful. And it is by now decently cheap. I still think it should go 5 points more lower for all me 8s, 5 to 10 points maybe. But me 8s are becoming into a decent spot nowadays, so we'll see how that goes. Me 24P for sure. A solid helicopter. I really enjoy these guys now with the Cocon's high damage and fast flying power. And the 30mm gun is pretty decent if you get in range as well. 10% ECM. Gives them still a decent survivability. And we have them not being stun locked anymore. You can roam around a decent amount of these. Though with the latest changes to hit points, maybe could go down 10 points. We will see about that. And then we come to the air power of this deck. And there are a couple of ways to build this around as well. The seed here is what I would run in ranked. If you know the enemy doesn't have any radar EA in the deck, then obviously take another MiG-27 card. Or maybe even one of the rocket cards here. Or if you really want to just spam out units, MiG-23, though MiG-27 does the job already. But outside of that, cluster bombers, MiG-23, MiG-27, all good attack planes, really good attack planes. Can give you really nice killing power, and the Su-24 with its high 60% ECM is one of the best seed planes out there. So sending that in first, if the enemy has radar EA, is really good. And the MiG-23s, they're only 2 availability nowadays, but they're really cheap for a plane that has long-range missiles. The R-27R is not great. 23R, that is. The R-27 is great. The R-23R here, not that great, but it is a long-range missile, and that is the key part here. And you can get all 4 out pretty early, and if the enemy underestimates that capability, then they can start taking really bad traits with their fighters against you, and then you can just start to snowball that, securing yourself up then with some books on the way out if you maybe miss your missiles and the enemy is trying to chase you. And then you are set up for really strong air power here. So yes, KDA still got it. And if we come to pros and cons, I would say pro is that it is a pretty strong all-rounded deck. It can bring infantry, it can bring tanks, it can bring air spam, it has good artillery. Like the combined arms in this deck does function, and it also is really cost efficient. That is still one of its key factors. Everything has a cheap version, like cheap tanks, cheap MiG-23s, cheap infantry. But when it comes to cons, recon tap and forward deployment is lackluster. It lacks high-end anti-tank. That's an East German thing in general. So if the enemy gets too many high-level tanks on the battlefield, you are pretty cooked. You then really have to rely on the Smirch. That can work. Cluster Su-22 can work as well, but if the enemy is microing carefully, then you will struggle there. And yeah, those are the 2 main thing here: recon and forward deploy, and the tank, the high-end AT, like that's for sure holding you back. But outside of that, still really solid deck, and KDA highly recommended playing it. It's pretty unique playstyle, and yet not that hard to get into because you still have most of the bases covered. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Next video will obviously be with the gameplay of this, so if you don't want to miss that, consider leaving a follow down below, and see you next time. Bye bye. Have a great day.